Hey guys, today I want to talk about the changes coming to the Elemental Shaman in 10.0.5. These changes were posted yesterday and they are not super overwhelming, but they are worth talking about. So they're very simple. Flame Shock damage increased by 10%, Chain Lightning by 10%, Lava Beam by 10%, and Earthquake by 10%. So again, like I said, not very overwhelming, but they're better than what they look like on the surface. If you're playing a Wildfire build, Flame Shock is actually a good portion of your damage. It's usually about 3 for your overall. So this is actually a bigger change to your AoE than it looks like. I know a lot of times people will think that Flame Shock is very inconsequential in terms of damage, but if you're running Skybreaker's Fiery Demise in a Wildfire build, this will be a good source of your damage. And so this increase isn't nothing. It's not going to wow you or anything like that. You probably won't feel it too much, but it is something that is worth mentioning more than it just being just a inconsequential number. Chain Lightning and Earthquake being buffed, this will help out both Lightning and Wildfire builds. Both of those use those spells fairly heavily, and then Lava Beam is just being buffed to kind of keep in line with Chain Lightning so that we're not running into a situation where Lava Beam becomes terrible again. So that's pretty much it. And on the damage front, I know that this doesn't look too appealing overall, but it's better than nothing. It's a good place to start. Again, the developer's note down here says that these changes are for both Elemental and Restoration are aimed at improving their capabilities in dungeon content. So they're basically just focusing on Mythic Plus right here. They're not really looking at Raid yet, which is I'm a little confused by their statement at the top of this page here. They say, in addition to the class changes that are part of the 10.0.5 patch during scheduled weekly maintenance on Tuesday, January 24th, we will make a number of tuning adjustments to specializations based on their performance in Raid and Mythic Plus content. So this, in addition to, I'm not sure if this is just saying this is where they're starting and there's going to be more to come, or if this is the addition. I'm not 100% on what that means. That's kind of how I'm interpreting it, that there will be more changes. But that could just be copium because I know that this isn't enough. So even with this isn't going to do much to make us like into some like meta spec or anything like this. Again, it'll help, but it's not going to make us super powerful. This isn't like a complete, shift of focus or a complete shift into Elemental, like all of a sudden becoming super powerful. That's not going to happen. It's a welcome buff, but it is not anything that's going to be, overly impactful in terms of how the class feels or how good it is overall. This just helps buff it up a little bit. And I was talking about this on stream yesterday, and I was kind of maybe giving Elemental a little bit more benefit of the doubt. I was kind of like phrasing it that Elemental does fine single target damage, and it does do fairly good single target damage, but the biggest problem is it's just not keeping in line with other classes' abilities to do kind of the same thing. And the other problem, and the main problem here, and the main reason why like buffs like this aren't going to really fix anything, is because in this current Dragonflight talents meta, the classes that do the best are the ones that can take a build that can do very good single target and very good AoE without having to give up one or the other. And Elemental Shaman is not one of those classes. Elemental Shaman has a very pure single target build that's decent for single target, like if you look at something like Taros, if you look like the Max Parsis, but even then, like most people aren't really that high up. It's definitely bottom half even with that, but that build, that pure single target build, can't really do anything other than just pure single target plus one additional add if you have like a cleave situation. For the most part, it's really just that pure single target build can only do that. It can't do AoE. So you take our best case scenario single target, try to put it into an AoE situation, and it just will not be able to do much damage. Conversely, if you take something like the Mythic Plus Lightning build and you try to take that into single target, it's not going to be anywhere near some of these other classes in terms of its single target damage. So Elemental Shaman's really having to pick between what it wants to do, if it wants to be more single target or if it wants to be more AoE. Like Wildfire allows you to kind of have a middle ground. It's not a best of both. It's a middle ground. It can do some good AoE and it can do some good single target. It keeps up definitely with AoE for the most part, but it really does start to fall off depending on your talents is when you go into to single target. So it has that middle ground, but it doesn't actually excel in both like some classes, not like Outlaw or like Havoc DH. It doesn't really be able to get the best of both. So that's really where Elemental Shaman's problems really lie, is in that area. And the only way they're going to fix that is by changing the the class or the spec talent tree. And I don't think they're going to do that, because I feel like the community perception, the community feedback that I've seen about the Elemental Shaman spec tree has been very good. If you look at that tree, there's not a single talent in that tree that isn't used in some build somewhere. And that's something that should be really commended, and that's really good. But the problem is that it just doesn't do one or the other. Like most builds don't do very good one and the other at the same time, like some of these other meta classes. So that's the biggest issue that I see with it right now. There's not going to be any level of buffs that really fix it until it becomes, you know, you could fix it, but that would basically mean that Elemental would become overpowered in some aspect. So I don't really know what their goal is there. I don't think we're going to see major changes like that until like a 10.1, and even then we might not even see it then. So again, these buffs are going to help somewhat. They are going to help bolster your damage in a Mythic Plus environment. Don't expect it to help much in rating. Again, based on the wording, we might see more changes. I don't think we're going to see it to like Elemental Blast. They seem that they've been like kind of scared about buffing that because of how good it is in PvP. But I think that they could have done some buffs to Lava Burst and Lightning Bolt without getting into too much trouble. I'm kind of surprised that we're not seeing either of those things getting buffed. I think that would be fine to have done something like that as well. It wouldn't have gotten out of hand. The other thing that I think is kind of more problematic is this buff to Healing Surge. Obviously, it's great that Healing Surge is getting buffed. That's good for Resto. That's good for Elemental. That's even good for Enhance for that matter. But this is kind of showing that they're not really willing to buff our defensives. Elemental has really struggled in terms of its defensive categories, and by buffing its healing and not even talking about defensives here, it kind of makes me think that their solution is just heal yourself more because Healing Surge has been buffed. I was really hoping to see some sort of defensive buff, and maybe that will be coming. Even a second charge of Astral Shift would have been really nice. Just something to help cover more ground, but that doesn't even begin to cover some of our defensive weaknesses, but it would have been something. Healing Surge being increased is nice. That is one way that we have to help keep ourselves alive in a Mythic Plus environment, but I would have preferred something that was actually stopping damage from coming in instead of having to heal it up after the fact. So that's pretty much that. That's kind of my feelings for it. It's not great. It's not going to fix anything. Don't expect anything to be overly changed here. I'm hoping that there will be more by the 24th or maybe a couple weeks after that. We do need something, but Blizzard's kind of like approach to balance changes has almost always seemed like it was, as long as you have one spec to play in your class, and they're probably not going to worry about it too much, which is unfortunate. But at least they're showing that they are paying attention somewhat and giving us something. Resto's getting stuff, Affliction's getting stuff, Arms is getting a huge buff. So like they're definitely paying attention. But hopefully this isn't all the changes. So it is something to be happy about, that we're at least getting something there, paying attention. But, you know, hopefully this isn't the end of it. So, all right, guys, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.